Welcome to the Instant Ink Comic Book Podcast. This is the podcast where every handful of episodes we get a new creator on board and we make a one-page comic together. My name's Adriano. I'm a writer. You can find me at Pesto Comics on everything online. That includes Blue Sky and Twitter and all that business at Pesto Comics. You can also find my work at pestocomics.com. And you can't make a comic with just a writer, so I have my partner here, Roberto. Roberto, let everybody know who you are and what you're up to.
Well, I'm Roberto Viacaba. I'm the founder of Green Iceberg Press and creator of Voyager. And you can find me on robertoviacabaillustration.com and find all the social media, the particular that you want, and tag me there.
Right on. And today we are joined with a creator that I've had the pleasure of talking with online a bit. I'm happy to finally meet him in person. PJ, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm PJ Curling. I'm the writer and creator of Undisputed, which is a pro wrestling comic, not entirely unlike From Parts Unknown by somebody we might or may not know. And that's available now on my website, teamninjashark.com. I'm also on Substack at teamninjashark.substack.com, and I'm on Blue Sky, pjcurling.bsky.social.
Right on. That's awesome. And yeah, I highly recommend the Substack. You're pretty active on there. You got a lot to share and a lot of cool, interesting stories. So I've been enjoying the Substack quite a bit. And
Awesome. Thank you.
I appreciate you sending the preview for the comic. I've really enjoyed it. I know we're working on something together for it too. So it spawned some ideas that I won't spill while we're recording, but
Awesome.
we'll talk about that later. But yeah, really enjoyed it. I think it's cool that we're kind of in the same little space, and
yeah, for sure.
Right? It's an underserved market, I think, wrestling comics. So what was the one? Do a Power Bomb kind of kicks something off, and I think there's a groundswell that's happening, and I'm glad that we're kind of catching.
There have been there. Right? I forget what the guy's name is, but there was a guy not too long ago that just did a bunch of biography comics about wrestlers, and Lucha Masked Republic, I think, is starting to produce some wrestling comics, and they've got a Vampiro title coming out where Vampiro is a vampire hunter, I think. So there's some really interesting stories that are pro wrestling and pro wrestling adjacent that I'm really excited to check out when I get a chance. But
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know even in the back matter of some of the recent DC stuff, they're doing these like AEW like snippet stories.
Yeah.
They feel a little more. It's weird to read like an absolute DC comic where there's like all this gore and violence, and then it's like kind of like
and then Darby Allin shows up for no reason. Just Darby Allin coffin dropping somebody out of nowhere for no good reason but marketing.
Yeah, it's a very weird turn. It kind of feels like the comics that used to be in the back of cereal boxes, but
right.
I appreciate that we're all kind of getting some synergy because there's a lot of crossover in the audiences for sure. So it makes a lot of sense.
There can never be enough wrestling.
Of course. As much as people might complain about the bad stuff, you only get to the good stuff if you wade through some of the bad stuff, right? So
very true.
There's got to be room for everything. All right. So that said, we're gonna do some good stuff today. I'm gonna bring up.
We're gonna
try. We have a pretty good track record. I feel like of the comics we've made, they've all been surprisingly good. So
challenge accepted.
Right on. So ignore these prompts that just popped up. I'm going to refresh them with a caveat that if we have ones that we've done before, we're going to skip over those. I'll flag them as we go. So I'm going to regenerate these and I'll read them out to you. We have one that we've done before, but I'll mention that. All right. So we have refreshed. An unexpectedly refreshing situation. Looney Tune. Your character is a cartoon. It's not much of a prompt. Apples and oranges. Write a story about comparisons. Holding hands is the one we've done before, so we're going to nix that one. And then peace out. What do you find peaceful? So if any of these speak to you, let me know. Otherwise, I'll refresh a new one for you for the one we missed.
I'm drawing blanks on these.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let's do a refresh. We won't hang up on them too much. So what do we got here? Okay. One of them repeated, but otherwise we're good. So coffee or tea, a dialogue about the merits of coffee versus tea, Fairy tales, fairies have invaded the world. Refreshed, an unexpectedly refreshing situation. That one we've seen already. Sound of silence, write about something breaking a calm silence. I feel like we may have done that, but I don't know if we did it exactly. We did. Okay, cut that one too. And then good vibes. What's a situation where the character is getting great vibes? Any of those? Those feel like a little more friendly. I don't know if anything's coming to you.
Sound of silence. I'm thinking there's something about something going on backstage before like a metal or a punk rock show. Um, Good vibes. I'm getting like skydiver, surfer kind
Okay,
of thing.
I think we could
Um,
work with that, right? Because keep in mind, so we got a
yeah,
one pager, right? So these
yeah,
usually work if you have like a punchline almost, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a joke, right? Usually on this show, everyone's gone terribly dark. So that's even where my head has gone. I usually would go silly, and this time I've gone dark, but I'm not gonna share it unless you want me to. But
I mean, I'm always up for dark humor. So lay
yeah,
it on me. What do you got?
so we're talking good vibes skydiving. There's an
Yeah.
obvious ending to that story, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
There's nothing in the chute, right? Where you could
Or
have,
we mix it with Looney Tunes and it's an anvil in the chute.
oh yeah,
That's a classic. That's a classic gag.
I'm not against that. I mean, Roberto's got a very realistic style, so going cartoony with it might be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I can try.
You could try, yeah.
Um,
Like,
We did
keep your.
we did Bluey the other day.
What's that?
We did Bluey, the cartoon.
That's true. Yes. So we did attempt at Bluey.
my niece
So,
will love that.
so that's true. But you don't. We don't even have to go cartoony. I think if you do it in your style, Roberto, like do it realistic, but we'll make it this like cartoony situation, right?
Well, I'm also thinking for Sound of Silence, like guitar player, bass player arguing, then
Mm-hmm.
like, all right, we're about to go on, silence, and then hello Cleveland, and they just start going.
Where's the
So there
conflict?
could be it could be about like the two not getting along and then immediately turning it on and getting along on stage.
Yeah, I could see that.
Um,
I feel like there's not enough conflict in that story. There needs to
yeah,
be like, right? That feels like an opening to something that should
yeah,
happen, right? Where if we go with something, something horrible happening, something unexpected, it inherently has some conflict in it, right?
yeah.
Like you almost want it. You need to have your beginning, middle, and end, and your story does. To be fair, they could be arguing about something. When we could do that, I think the ending needs to be punched up a bit in terms of
Yeah.
like they go out there and something unexpected happens, right?
I do also like the idea of doing something with skydiving because I don't know of any skydiving comics.
Yeah,
And that might be fun. And there are a lot of metalheads and punks that are out there making comics about punk and metal. So maybe doing something with skydiving for good vibes might be.
yeah.
Or
Let's
we
do
could.
it.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's go with skydiving.
Yeah.
So with skydiving, we have some options. I'm gonna kill my screen. So I'm we want at least two characters, right? Like that's a minimum, just so that again conflict. I mean, you can have a what's the word, like the man versus environment. That's totally doable. The environment is the sky and the ground, I guess.
Yeah.
So the conflict is obvious in that sense, but
The,
I feel
the
like there
conflict is
could be,
with gravity.
yeah, right. Gravity in itself is the is the conflict. So I'm wondering from there, do we go with like maybe there's two people, they're in the plane about to jump out and they're having an argument, right? Maybe it's somebody gets pushed out before they could get their chute on.
Oof,
Maybe
that
it's
is dark.
yeah, right.
I mean, I'm thinking. I think if we want to go dark humor, I think there's a gag with like the instructor saying, "Whatever you do, don't push this button," and then
Yeah.
the instructor falls.
I like
And
that.
that's the gag that's kind of sticking out to me.
Yeah, that could work. I feel like that. Yeah, okay. I could picture that, right? It's like they're in the plane. He's the person's not paying attention, right? They're not wearing their chute,
And the
and the
guy's just
instructor's like,
vibing, throwing a hang loose, and like,
"Yeah, right." And the instructor's begging them to pay attention and saying, "Absolutely don't hit this button. This is like a whatever." And then they clue in. They're like, "Oh, this button," and they go and they hit it, and off they go, right? Sucked out of the
or
back of the plane.
or they're both vibing, and the guy gets a call from his girlfriend. He's like, "All right, fuck you, I will move out." Click. Okay, let's go.
I feel like you could almost start there.
Yeah.
What do you think, Roberto?
Uh, I'm not sure. I'm just doodling planes and guys with
Show
goggles.
us. We got to see the doodles here. So I'm thinking, okay, so let's start. So the setting's pretty clear, right? We start in a plane, right? Nice.
Love it.
Right. We start maybe in the back of the plane, right? I think you have your characters pretty clear too, right? I think maybe I like the idea of having, because you don't want them to be too similar. You want them to kind of be,
Yeah.
oil and water. So you have your vibing guy, your dude who's not even wearing shoes, right? Like he's barefoot and just chilling,
Hawaiian shirt,
right?
puka
Yeah,
shell necklace.
yeah. Just came from like his hacky sack tournament or
Right,
whatever,
right.
right? Not paying attention. Like he's just here because it was something to do. And then you got your like super stern, flight instructor, not or whatever, skydiving guy.
Yeah, I feel like the instructor would have to be, just to contrast the surfer kind of guy. He would have to be like retired army,
Yeah,
airborne,
yeah, like super
live
stern. Like he's
hardcore,
doing this because
still has the
why I
high
don't
tight
know.
fade haircut.
Yeah, right. Thick mustache, like just
Right, yeah.
yeah. I think that's the right idea, right? So you get those two together in the plane. This guy's trying to like get through to him, and he's just like, I don't know. I imagine he doesn't have a phone, but like, what else are you doing on the plane if you're not paying attention? I guess.
Yeah.
But he's like, I don't know, playing with the string on his pants or something, just not paying attention. And then that's when the guy's like, "Do not, by under any circumstances, hit this button." And then this button, right? And then we get our nice. That's our payoff. Maybe it's the plane from afar and them falling out. Maybe it's them getting sucked out of the plane. I don't
How
know.
about they're standing right next to the door, and the instructor says, "We pull this at 1,000 feet. Don't pull it until 1,000 feet." And the guy goes, "This," and
Yeah,
they get sucked out of the airplane.
and then that's it. They're gone. Like, maybe okay. I wonder if in that last or second to last frame, are they strapped to one another at that point? So this way, that guy gets like screwed along with them, right? Like they're both getting pulled out,
I'm trying to figure out which one of those is funnier.
right?
Because, I
Like him
mean,
going alone or him taking the guy with him.
obviously the facial reaction of both of them getting pulled out will be hilarious, but also the surfer guy not having to pay the consequences of his actions, I think, is really funny too.
Yeah. Oh, so he sends the instructor out.
Yeah.
I like that.
Like, whatever you
Okay.
do, don't pull this cord
And
until
he goes and
1,000 feet.
grabs
This
his.
one,
I like
and then
that.
just the shock as he gets sucked out.
I like
think.
that.
Yeah, I think if the surfer doesn't pay the consequences, I
Okay.
think that might be funnier.
That's yeah. Okay. I wasn't even thinking that way. That yeah. I figured he was the one, but you're right. It's even better if it's just like yeah. He gets away with it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. I think we got a good story here. I think we're landed on it. Roberto, what do you think? Any concerns with our?
I'll start doing it, but I don't know if I get it like all the panels. But let's see, let's see what I can do.
So okay, so yeah, let's go through the panels here just so that
Yeah.
we can establish. We start with them in the back of the plane together, or maybe okay. We always start with our establishing shot. I think you kind of have it there with the plane in the air, right? Like we need to know what they're in the back of, but maybe it doesn't need to be our usual wide shot. All right, maybe it's like just the plane in the corner. so that we
But
can.
is it so the thing that he pulls is the some strap in the parachute in the instructor?
Yeah, like right about, I think it's like right about here on the shoulder, on like the shoulder strap. There's like a
Yes.
handle, a cord handle that has like a little plastic grip on it, and you
Yeah.
pull it to deploy the parachute.
Yes.
So he would be saying, he would be holding it and saying, "Don't pull this until I tell you," and the guy would pull it and just have like the string in his hand saying this.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Got it. Got it.
So we established the plane. They're in the back of the plane, and he's getting his lecture. Right. So it's the dude like with his bare feet, and then the stern guy giving him his lecture. Right. And then where do we go from there? I guess at that point, like, we don't want to do just 4 panels, but that's all I'm picturing. And then the next one, Tim saying, well, I guess we have an insert of him pulling the handle and then the faces. Okay, we might end up going over here. Okay, so right, them in the back, he's getting the speech. And then it's the do not pull this until we're at 1,000 feet, or we pull this when we're at 1,000 feet. And then him grabbing the pull, that guy's face of him being like, "Ooh," as he's getting pulled out, and then the dude holding it as the guy's falling out of the plane. Right? I think
I'm just
so. That's
writing
like
a
5
couple.
or 6. I don't know if Roberto, you captured all that in your head while I was rambling.
Yeah. Kind of.
Kind of. Let's see how the layouts go, and then we'll give you some time to do that in the meantime. But I think
I'm not going to do an establishing shot. I'm going to do them in the interior of the plane, and we can see another plane to give the idea they are in the air.
okay.
There.
I like that. That's economical. I like it.
Yeah, and then I want to see the both guys' faces and talking,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe the hand pulling the thing, the right,
Yep.
something like that, and maybe doing the question, and I don't know, maybe the face reaction face, and then the structure falling, or he's falling here, and or maybe just one panel more, or you said 5 panels.
It doesn't have to be 5. I was just trying to picture it in my head.
I
But
kind
right,
of like
like
your
we get
idea.
the
I want the reaction of the instructor, and then like here in the door and
yeah, exactly.
falling.
The dork holding the thing as he gets pulled out. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Um,
I think we got it.
I kind of like the idea of having the plane in the corner, not necessarily in a panel, but breaking out of the corner, and then we can work the first real panel under it, almost, or to the side, coming out of it. Where it's
Sorry,
just
where?
like just having the plane, not necessarily in a panel, but just having the plane, and then having the second panel working its way out of it. So you're not working panel. It's just plane kind of sitting on top of the rest of the page. Does that make sense, or am I speaking?
No, I'm not getting it. Sorry.
Then we'll just go on.
No, I feel like you're
Maybe that's a good idea, but I'm not following.
Like instead
So
of having the plane centered in a panel, just have the
yes.
plane and then build the next panel around the shape of the plane, or around the plane and a little bit of the background, like this the next panel.
so use the plane as like the frame of the panel. Is that what you're
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
at?
Just use the plane as its own panel instead of having it in a traditional panel, and then
The
having the
plane,
second panel build to the right out of it.
but
I don't
you
think
mean
visually, which is the problem. So like it's hard for me to, because usually I would write, hey, just make a plane, make it look cool, and then we'll move on to panel 2.
Yeah.
but, okay, you mean like the out of frame, the plane here or something like that, and then follow
Yeah,
the panel.
yeah, and then coming down out of the plane, we can start building the traditional panels, but the plane doesn't have to be in its own separate panel.
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing is that I prefer that the plane is not touching anything.
Okay.
So to give the idea that it's flying in the air, instead of maybe it looks like he's stuck on something. If I do it like here with the panel adjacent.
This
Sorry.
is why I let my artists do whatever they want with the panels.
Well, this is collaboration, right?
Yeah.
It's like, how does this work? And it's like, well, here's my problem with it.
Because if
Yeah.
you read my panel descriptions, I give a lot of detail,
Yeah,
and then I just say pick what looks best to you,
yeah,
and we'll go with it.
that's fair.
We'll do it anyway. If it doesn't make
No.
sense, we'll raise things.
You're the visual thinker. You're the professional. Whatever works best for you up here will work best on the page.
Yeah. And the other thing is the shape of the plane, but to do a panel with the shape of the plane, it's kind of hard because
Okay.
it's like I don't know how to make it like to read well and make room for the people inside. It's
You almost need like a 2-page spread for that,
right,
Okay.
which unfortunately I
Um,
don't have. We're restricting you to 1 page, so
yes.
got to figure out how we can fit it.
Yeah. Once I had to do like a full page inside the silhouette of a girl,
Mm-hmm.
but I do it like all like she was laying down with the legs like folded and the arms. So I have to like make her like the widest I can with the position, so I have more room to draw
I
inside.
would
But
never do that to her. I would never do that to her. Not unless I
thank
was
you,
paying
thank you.
$4,000 a page.
Yeah.
But it ended being a cool page. It was good. The challenge was interesting, so it ended being a really good page.
Right on. I think the difference is you're not under time constraints, and
Right.
yeah,
Yes.
if you need a
Okay.
week to do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna stick around here for a week. Uh, we'll run out of
I've
things
got
to
the rest
talk.
of my week blocked out. The
Yeah.
hell with Thanksgiving. You got me till Sunday.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we had our Thanksgiving 2 months ago, so
Oh yeah. And I'll
Our-
have had my Thanksgiving 3 months ago by the time this comes out.
true.
No.
That's right. It's February. So it's no
You
secret
got
that
me
we
until
do-
Valentine's Day.
That's right. Yeah. No, our Thanksgiving is your Columbus Day, I think.
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Sorry, Indigenous Peoples
Yeah.
Day. It's enough. I have to learn what your holidays are. Now I have to learn what the new names are.
I didn't even know you had a prime minister 20 minutes ago.
See, so we're good. I'm doing all right. Oh, jeez. All right. So while Roberto does this, he's already fleshing it out quite good. What do we chat about? I know wrestling is always top of mind with the two of us with our recent comics that have come out.
Well, where did From Parts Unknown come from? Where did that concept come to you from?
So that's actually an idea that I had long ago. That's like, when you have an idea that you wanted to do and you just like, for whatever reason, you don't do it and it sticks. It's entirely different from that initial idea, but it was basically like, so I'm wearing my Red Wings cap. That's reasonable. I would go to Red Wings games with my brother from Toronto. It's a 4-hour drive, 3.5 really. And you just end up talking a lot. I end up talking a lot. I'm the talker. And in that, I had like all these ideas. Like, oh man, when I start making comics, like I want to do like a wrestling comic, and it's going to be about like all these like, without spoiling things, it's going to be all these like horror things. Like I wanted to do like a horror wrestling crossover. Like I was thinking, I'm going to do like a lot of like kayfabe stuff. Like if Undertaker were real type of situations. And then it kind of developed into what it is now. So now I it's not nowhere near what it originally was, right? My whole point was it was just going to be a tag team with two brothers, and they're off to fight this, like something that is beyond wrestling, right? Like wrestling is the setting, but the the fight is just so much more, and that's kind of what From Parts Unknown is. But I've really brought it back into the wrestling part of it more so than the original idea. It was just going to be like they're wrestlers and horror things happen, right? Buffy the Vampire Slayer with wrestling characters. Now it's about the wrestling, like it all takes place in the arena and the surrounding areas. So yeah, it's just one of those like long gestating ideas that morphed into something entirely different. So I can't even tell you exactly where it came from. Just that it was going to be brothers as a tag team fighting something, and I think it's been refined quite a bit from there. Yeah,
Yeah, and I know you talked about in the lead up to it, you were talking about it being a more of a horror thing than not necessarily more of a horror thing, but there were
yeah,
horror aspects to it, which gave me a sigh of relief because I didn't want to write something that was too similar to what you were doing because I was trying to get it out about the same time as your campaign was come down. I wasn't able to make the timing work, but I knew I didn't want to compete with you theme wise.
yeah. No, I think if anything, we complement one another because
Yeah,
yours is like the pure wrestling story, right?
yeah,
Um, yours is like like proper, like this is about wrestling. It's maybe got some noir elements to it, which I really appreciate. I'm into that, so so I really like that side of it. But even the noir elements are tied directly into the wrestling, right?
yeah.
Where mine's more, yeah, it's more supernatural and all that. Still, again, I used it to tie it into the wrestling. Now the
Yeah.
original wasn't so much, but
And that's funny
yeah,
because
totally different animals, right?
I really wasn't thinking noir. I was thinking like just straight up '80s VHS action. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
it's kind of inspired by stories like Karate Kid and all those Eric Roberts movies where he's the
oh
good
yeah,
guy's a fighter that just doesn't want to fight anymore, and there's an evil business owner that wants him to fight one more time, and it was really more inspired by that kind of schlocky nonsense from the '80s than anything like highbrow.
yeah, 100%. The like one last job kind of
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Oh
yeah.
yeah, when I say noir, I mean it in the pulp sense, right? I mean it in
Okay,
the
yeah,
like, yeah, people involved in shady dealings and
yeah.
willing to go to certain ends to make these things happen, right?
Oh,
So
wait until we get to the last issue.
nice. Yes. Yeah, I'm excited. It was a good read. I read it. It's still
Awesome,
fresh in my head because I read it this morning, and like I
awesome.
said, I have ideas for my part in it, so I'm excited to share that with you once we're all done. But but yeah, it seems like a really cool story, and again, I think you went more like the wrestling end of it. Like it really feels like a wrestling story where
It really is. It's it's my love letter to pro wrestling because I've been a wrestling fan since WrestleMania 2.
nice.
My one of my mom's best friends from high school. We all have those aunts and uncles that aren't related, but they're our parents' friends.
Yeah, yep.
My aunt Janice, she was a sound engineer, and one of her first gigs out of college was Mister Rogers' Neighborhood, and then she started working in sports. And one of her first sports gigs was WrestleMania, either one or two, when it was still like a closed circuit broadcast.
Amazing.
And I remember she got me a Ricky the Dragon Steamboat autograph. She got me a WrestleMania 2 T-shirt, and that was the era of like rock and wrestling. It was Hulk Hogan's Wrestling All Stars cartoon show. It was wrestling was all over the place. And since then, off and on a little bit, but since then I've pretty much been a wrestling mark, all up through the Attitude Era, ECW, the early 2000s indie renaissance, and now, especially after writing Undisputed, I've been watching more wrestling now than I ever have been.
Yeah, I have a similar experience. You maybe got into it a little earlier than I did, but but
I
yeah,
think
still
I'm
there.
probably a little bit older too.
Yeah, yeah, fair. But I was still there for Hogan. Like WWF Hogan,
Mhm.
right? And then Bret Hart and that whole era of like, and it being Canadian, like Bret Hart was the man, right?
Yeah,
To the point that like I remember going to see, it was supposed to be Hogan at Maple Leaf Gardens, but
hmm
this was again not knowing at the time that that whole dispute and him retiring and all that was happening at that time. So Bret
yeah,
Hart was the man, and that was kind of what got me in. But that was like, yeah, forever ago. And then the Attitude Era and all that, and then I guess what are we calling it now? Ruthless Aggression Era, which is corny as hell.
I
But
think I think we've got to retire ruthless aggression because now we're coming out of the PG era, going
yeah,
into
I think there
Netflix.
was like Ruthless Aggression, and then the PG era, and
Yeah,
then whatever the heck it is now, the Hunter era or something. Bloodline, Netflix, whatever we're calling this. It's hard to name things when you're in it. To be fair,
yeah. We'll find a cool name for it somewhere.
it'll come naturally
Yeah,
down the line.
yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Did you watch the Netflix special, the Mr. McMahon?
I
Uh,
did. I did
yeah,
just because I honestly it came out the same time as Queen of Villains came out, and I thought Queen of Villains was a lot better. It was a much more enjoyable thing to watch
nice. Okay,
because had I had never heard of Dump Matsumoto until that show came out. So like even though it was like a biopic or whatever, it was all new information and it was a really well told story.
yeah,
Where all the stuff from Mr. McMahon, like between following the news and watching other shoot interviews, like we kind of knew what the story we all know he's a trash bag, right? Like
yeah,
it's no secret that he ruined a lot of careers on his way to like he put Vern Gagne out of business with the AWA. He put Jimmy Crockett Jr. out of business with NWA.
oh yeah,
You know, he put World Class out of business down in Texas.
yeah.
He buried a ton of people, and that's just the wrestling stuff that isn't illegal that he did.
Oh yeah, it gets a lot darker if you want to dive
Yeah,
into it, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
if you're not a wrestling fan and you like Vice's Dark Side of the Ring, it's a decent watch.
yeah,
But if you want to watch a documentary like that, I would just watch Dark Side of the Ring. I think Dark
yeah.
Side of the Rings are better shows and are more interesting stories.
I think so. Yeah, I think Mr. McMahon was for the like either the super casuals, like folks who they were there during the Attitude Era, but they haven't checked in since, right?
Yeah,
Or like even less so, like even just people who like know of wrestling, right, and are interested in checking it out. I think it was for them. It was great. It was all new information. But yeah, if you've been around, like there were no revelations to be had there.
yeah.
It was well produced. Like I enjoyed the
Oh,
experience of watching it. Um,
it was
but
in focus and in color and everything. Like
yeah,
the sound was all synced up.
it did the basics really well.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was better.
Everybody was in frame.
Yeah, I just think it was a little better than the usual. Like, I don't know if you watch this stuff produced like directly from WWE, but that's like usually colored a little differently. Like everything's rosy and like, oh my god, we changed the world.
Yeah.
Every single topic they changed the world. So this was nice to kind of have it in context of what was happening everywhere.
Yeah.
But
Nobody in WWE will ever say the word kayfabe, but their videos are all kayfabe.
yeah, exactly, right? Like even when they're kind of, it's like the new age kayfabe where it's like we're all in on it, right? We all understand, and yet, right? It's like them doing the AEW press conferences, and now WWE is doing them too. Like those blow my mind. It's like why are we doing this? Right? It's a weird
Yeah.
because they want to make it seem like it's legitimate, so they'll break kayfabe here and there, and then
Right.
still be within it. And it's a weird muddling of it. It's interesting as like a case study, but to watch, I'm not getting anything out of it. But somebody is. They're doing them still, so I don't know. For someone, it's interesting, but yeah, I don't know. It's a weird balance, and I get it because now you have to go on podcasts, and you have to have an Instagram and a TikTok and all that business. And how can you do that and be in character the entire time,
Right.
right? So you're
Yeah.
gonna have some blurring of the lines. So this is just the way it is now.
I have no idea what's kayfabe.
Kayfabe. So kayfabe is like when wrestlers act as though like their character is
Oh,
real,
okay. But
right?
that's it's a
Yeah,
acronym or what is it?
it's like a Japanese word that we've stolen and used.
Actually, the etymology of
There
kayfabe.
we
This
go.
is how big of a wrestling dork I am. It's a carny term. Like carnies. Carnies in America. I don't know like street fairs and carnivals are in Canada, but carny folk up here or down here, they developed their own language which is basically just called carny, and it's a variation of Pig Latin. Um, and kayfabe is pig Latin for be fake. So, like, the definition is the suspension of disbelief. So, like, you're kayfabing yourself when you watch a Marvel movie and you suspend disbelief and you believe that Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, but you just do it for wrestling instead.
Right on. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the idea. It's like when they're in public, they're still their character, and that's the kayfabe, right? Like it's not the show ends, but they're still the instead of being a normal person, they they keep their character going, and now because they're always a camera, always on a podcast or something, it's harder for them to stay in character, so they kind of break character but still stay in it, and it's a weird like yeah.
And also because of how tastes have changed, more and more wrestling characters are just who the people are.
Yeah,
Like John Cena is just kind of a
like a
tuned up
heightened
version
version.
of John Cena.
Yeah.
And that's what people want.
Yep.
They don't want Tugboat. They don't want any of the old John Tenta gimmicks.
They don't. I do.
They don't. But but give me an earthquake match 8 days
Right?
a week.
I think there's a home for it. Didn't I think Robert Rodriguez tried that, right? With his what was it called?
Lucha Underground.
Yes, I knew you'd know
It was incredible. It was
right?
so, actually, like, Lucha Underground was a huge inspiration for Undisputed. Like
Right on.
the Tino Montez character, which is like the big bad guy in Undisputed, draws pretty directly from Dario Cueto in Lucha Underground.
Nice.
So yeah, that was so well produced, great matches.
I think that's what held it up, right? Is that the production of it was so high quality, and you're still dealing with wrestling folk, so you're only getting that niche of, you know what I mean? Like you're not going to get what you need to develop that level
Yeah.
of production, but it was amazing. Like
Yeah, and I think it was the first time true lucha libre was presented to an American audience.
yeah,
And I don't know that they did real lucha libre. I think because lucha has some odd rules, like it's a 20 count on the outside, and in tag matches, a lucha tag is if you slide out and touch the floor, your partner is now the legal man. And there's some rules like that I don't think they brought to Lucha Underground, but it was all in all, it was a pretty authentic lucha product.
yeah,
And
like as
that
best
had been done.
as good as you're gonna get without having to explain yourself so much,
Yeah.
right? Like I think that was the key, is just let's get people in the door and then we'll figure out the rest later, kind of thing. But but yeah, the production
And
value.
they hit the formula pretty quickly, and they were filling that building week in, week out. They did,
Yeah,
they
right.
did a really good job.
I mean, arguably, you shouldn't need that much. Like you have one set. It's your arena, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't even have to be that big,
No.
like Lucha Underground, right? Like it's a relatively small space, right?
Mhm.
And that should be enough. But yeah, I guess it's just if you're not getting that market, those dollars, it's just hard to maintain that level of production, right? But
Yeah, well,
it's really cool. It was a cool
that's what Billy
experiment.
Corgan tried to do with TNA with NWA when he brought it back a couple years ago.
Yeah,
Right before COVID, he was basically doing a studio show like they used to do in the 70s and 80s, and
yeah,
maybe had probably less than 100 people in the building, but it was a full house, and they were doing good pro wrestling. And then I think it just became a character of itself.
yeah. That's
Billy
fair.
Corgan's just fantasy booking this show.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess TNA was doing that for a while. Like when they had Hogan in that like last run there, they were just out of Universal Studios, right? So they would just grab you as you were walking by. Hey, want to watch some wrestling? Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up going to one of those shows, and it's everybody's on one side,
Yeah.
right? And it's just a few
And they
dozen
had a great
people.
deal there. They had a great deal.
Yeah.
They had, I'm sure they had a 4-wall deal, which is basically the venue saying, we're not going to charge you rent, just fill the building. And then the venue, Universal Studios, makes their money selling T-shirts and sodas to fans after the show.
Yeah, exactly. It was like it was part of going to Universal Studios experience, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like we could do another musical or something like they do, like a Shrek show or something, or
Right.
put on your wrestling show and then whatever you get a TV show out of it, bonus, right?
Well, I
But
mean, it's what they do in Atlantic City and Vegas too with
true.
boxing and MMA. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I did a ton of MMA shows, and they were all 4 wall deals in Atlantic City, where the promoter comes in, uses the room for free, and then works like hell to fill the building so that there are a bunch of people after the show going out and spending money on the casino floor.
right on.
You
Yeah,
know,
it makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Oh, that's bringing me back. Uh, the last time I was in Atlantic City, it wasn't the last time. The first time I went to Atlantic City, I went to Raw at Boardwalk Hall. That was pretty cool,
Oh, what a beautiful building!
right? It
I've
was.
seen I've seen car racing in that building.
Oh, weird. Yeah, yeah. I wasn't ready
Yeah.
for it. We were just in town, and it's like, well, let's go to the show. Like we're here at the time that it's here. Why wouldn't we go? And this was like Edge and Cena era.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and again, being from Toronto, that was a big deal. Like, big fan of Edge. So, he put him through a table at the end of the show and told him, "I'll see you in Toronto." And we were cheering more than anybody else there. It's like,
We'll get to be there.
yeah, right. So it was,
Stupid
yeah,
New Jersey people. You can't go to Toronto.
yeah. It was just serendipitous. But yeah, it's a great building and like so
Oh, it's
much
very
history, especially with
Yeah.
wrestling and all that too.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I was really happy to be there. But it just you said Atlantic City, and that sparked in my head. It's like that was a good show to go to. But yeah, so when's the last one? Like, what's the last show you've been to? Is it recent? Has it been a long time?
Um, well, I was at the last show at the ECW arena before the renovation.
Oh wow, right on.
I had the chance to stand at gorilla position for the last match,
Nice.
and I remember Todd Gordon and New Jack both blowing by. I mean, New Jack was legitimately one of the scariest human beings I've ever been in a room with. Like he was legitimately outside of his mind. Like
Wow.
that guy would try to hurt you. But yeah, I had a chance to go to the last show and be backstage, thanks to Maven Bentley, who is the technical wrestling director on Undisputed. He checked all the wrestling bits to make sure that they made sense.
Nice.
And he was the president of Combat Zone Wrestling for a long time, and CZW ran the ECW arena when ECW shut down. So they kind of carried that hardcore wrestling vibe. They call it ultra violence,
Mhm.
but CZW has kind of carried that tradition for the last 25 years now.
Wow.
And Maven invited me to the show, and it was CZW and Dragon Gate USA, which was a promotion run by Gabe Sapolsky, who started Ring of Honor.
Nice.
And they both ran a show in the afternoon, and I hung around. And I took the last picture ever in the original ECW arena.
That's incredible. That's quite a notch in your belt there. Yeah. That's really cool. So you were mentioning, yeah, so you have like a technical director for the wrestling in your comic. That's awesome. It does pay off. It does show like that opening scene with the wrestling bits. Like it's very like spot on, like the
Yeah,
color and all that. And it's like, yes, okay, I see what you're doing. I I'll say for my book, I stuck to clotheslines and suplexes just to keep it easy on the artist who may not fully know
wait
all the
until
moves.
wait until issue 3.
Right on.
That's all
And
I'm
this
going
is
to
a
say.
three-parter, right?
Yeah, it's a limited series. Because I did last March. I tried to do a Kickstarter campaign for a zombie story that was a 32-page black and white for an ongoing. It
Mm-hmm.
was my first campaign. I don't have anything else out. It was just it just didn't fly.
Sure.
Like I just got my ass kicked on that Kickstarter campaign, and I kind of I did a post mortem. I got together with my partner, who is the financial backer, Chris, and I said, I think if we're going to get something out, we need to do a limited series story. We need to do shorter page counts, and it's got to be full color.
Yeah.
So I did some thinking, and I came up with this idea of like a very tropey 80s straight to VHS action story, which is good guy fighter retires, Evil business guy wants to bring him back for one more fight. How far is the evil business guy willing to push, and how far is the good guy willing to get pushed before he comes back? But I said it instead of like martial arts or street fighting or whatever, I just put it inside a pro wrestling universe
Yeah.
and came up with 60 pretty good pages, broke it down into 3 issues, found 2 incredible artists, and we had the whole book done before the Kickstarter campaign even started. So we were pretty fortunate. We the artist just did such an incredible job. I can't talk enough about how well they did with it, or how good they did with it. Great English, awesome English, PJ.
You're good. We got the gist of what you're saying.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, it did turn out really well. I can vouch for that. Haven't read it very recently, but yeah, it's some good work, and I think that's a good approach. Like I also started with the one shot. I was fortunate enough to start with a color one, so I think that may have helped me out the gate.
yeah,
Um, I did do a black and white one, the next one, and that underperformed my
yeah,
previous. So it seems like black and white, unless you have an audience that's specifically like attuned to that, like they're expecting a black and white book, like
yeah.
and you're bringing that audience with you, like it doesn't fly. Even the manga and stuff on Kickstarter, like it's color, right? It's just for whatever reason, people want color. It would save a ton on printing if
Would
everybody
be.
likes black and white,
Yeah,
but but they don't. So
and like I really want to get back to that original zombie story. I've had that. That's kind of my from parts unknown. I've had that story with me for 20 years. I just haven't had a chance to tell it correctly yet.
right on.
Um, and when I was originally writing it, I was really influenced by Becky Cloonan's early work. I was influenced by Rob Schrab's, black and white stuff. Like I just like all the classic black and white indie books. Like I love Scud the Disposable Assassin. I love DMZ, Channel Zero. Like those kinds of books were visually kind of what I had in mind when I was writing Taking Out the Dead. So I wanted it to be one of those really strong binary looking books with like, big, bold black and white visuals, but it just doesn't translate to zombies, I think.
Yeah, well, that or you just didn't find the right wave, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
it was just people were zombied out at the time. Like it's hard to tell sometimes, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
what drives people away. One way I've heard of doing it, which for me was like no way that's sustainable, is um, I was at Fan Expo this year at a
Hmm.
panel about people doing like indie comics and that, and they were saying like this one particular person says they do black and white, but they do graphic novel style. So they do 120 pages all at once and throw that on Kickstarter because at least people are getting the full book. So it makes people a little more open to suffering the black and white if they know they're getting an entire story in one go. That
For
said,
me to do that, I would be able to buy a pretty decent car.
how big is this story? Are we talking omnibus style or?
Well, I mean, if you're talking 120 pages,
Yeah,
with this guy doing this person doing full graphic novels.
yeah. I don't know how they swing it, and I'm like, oh, this person must be an artist, right? And they're just because we've even spoken to artists like that who like they put the book together themselves. So yeah, of course, like all you have is your time, so you could put in whatever time you need and have a graphic novel out, and you're golden. But this guy was a writer, so he's paying artists, right? So he's just taking on a whack full of debt and hoping for the best, right?
Yeah, I
So
my wife and I are trying to save for a house, so that shit wouldn't fly with her.
that's understandable. Yeah.
Hey, can I zero out our savings account so I can go make a graphic novel?
And hopefully make the money back.
Hope, yeah, maybe get a return on it.
Yeah, there's certainly no guarantees with that, right?
Zero chance of that happening.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I did. So I have been working ahead with from Parts Unknown, which, yeah, it's been tough. I've had to
Yeah.
stretch a lot more than I'd like, which is also why I'm planning a little more of a rapid release of all this stuff.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, we're in February. It should be launching anytime now, but but yeah,
Don't forget to
Daniel.
back. Click the notify me on launch button.
That's right. Notify on launch should be the next week or two. I don't know exactly when, but soon. But yeah, so Daniel, our artist, is so on top of things that we're already working on the final issue. Like that's how ahead of the game he is. And for context, issue 1 is out, right? And issue 5 is now being drawn. Like I have the
Wow.
pages for 2 through 4 ready.
Oh,
Number 2 is being colored. Like we're well ahead of schedule.
that's
That
great.
said, paying these guys has been it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Because I've done it okay with the previous Kickstarters, I could kind of swing it. But like, yeah, I need them to do well.
I'm hoping to get Undisputed 2 on the Kickstarter in March as well.
Nice.
And I'm talking to my partner about when we can start working on pages, because I have the script. You know, it's a complete 60-page story. You know, it's just a matter of finding the finances to get to work. And whether that happened with the Undisputed 1 Kickstarter campaign and eventual sales, we won't know. I won't know until we catch up to when this episode comes out.
Yeah.
Because we are kind of working. We're working explicitly on past knowledge only.
Yes.
But I'm hoping to get Undisputed 2 up on the Kickstarter, in March, and ideally I'd like to have I'd like to have all 3 issues out at some point by the end of 2025, and then go into 2026 trying to do the graphic novel version of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a clear game plan. I don't recommend doing it my way. It's painful. It's stressful.
Oh my god, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, again, I've had some practice. Like I've been doing this for at least a couple of years now, just the comic side of things, right? Like on Kickstarter. So I'm relatively familiar with how this all goes and how much I can expect to get back. So I'm doing it with some level of confidence of like, I know that if I invest this, I'll at least make it back. I'm not. It's just going to take a while to get there, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say like if you're on your first, second, third one to say okay, and then next year I'm going to do 7 Kickstarters.
Yeah.
That's asking a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm. Everybody has their own path to getting there. I think yours is the more prudent and reasonable way of doing it, to be fair.
Which
right?
is not how I usually operate.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But when it comes to finances and stuff,
Yeah.
if that's where you're doing it, that's great. That's
because I am riddled with ADHD, so I am always ready, fire, aim with everything in my life.
I hear you, and you know what? That's what's good about like Substack and things like that, right? Is that it's just my words. Like it's much like we were saying about the artists who do their 120-page graphic novel and all they really need is the time to put it together. That's kind of us with our like Substack and other things, right? Like if we need an outlet, it is available to us, right? So I appreciate that because I as well feel like everybody needs to hear my voice as much as possible. So I do a podcast and I do my Substack and all kinds of other things.
And I've gone 46 years without telling these stories, and I just want to start telling these stories. I just, they're in here. I just need to get them.
Yeah, and what's worse is that they keep coming, right? There's no relief. You think like, okay, I got those stories out. I'm finally done, but then it's like, oh, but what if?
Right.
What if I do this? What if I do that? So, yeah, I find it's a never-ending battle. Unfortunately, there's no relief coming. It never gets better. You're always gonna have that urge, but it's a good thing. If you lose that urge,
Like waves in the ocean, man.
Urge.
Like waves in the ocean, they just keep crashing down on you.